Hello, so welcome to Disability Voices United SDP Connect. My name is Kristianna Morales. I am the Director of Self-Determination Program Projects here. We're going to be starting in just a minute. We are going to be recording and live streaming. While you're waiting, please select your language. Go down to the icon at the bottom that looks like a globe and select your language, even if you speak English, because if somebody asks a question in the language, you won't hear the translation. We are translating in both Spanish and Korean today. If you were on a cell phone, there's 3 dots at the bottom. Click those 3 dots and that will help you get to the translation. Our Zoom wizard, Ed, our communications coordinator, is here. Do you have anything that you would like to share, Ed?
Nope, just please remember, folks, that I will be putting directions in the chat and things to know and helpful links, and that please know that the presentations and handouts that we'll be presenting today, Kristianna has provided them to me ahead of time. So just look in the chat. We will send the links to those as they become relevant. Thanks so much, Kristianna.
So are we ready to go? Let's get started. So we're going to start with our fearless leader, Judy Mark, and she has some really exciting news to tell us about things that happened last week.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I apologize from the beginning that I'm not going to be able to stay the entire session tonight. I'm actually on the East Coast and it is 7:30 p.m. and we still have not had dinner. So, but I wanted to share, because I know we had been talking at previous SDP Connects about the legislation that DVU, along with the Integrated Community Collaborative, are co-sponsoring in the legislature. This is the Disability Equity and Accountability Act. And this is a very important piece of legislation. It relates to the self-determination program in several ways, but I wanted to talk to you specifically today about our activities last week, and hoping that for those of you who might be interested in joining us on this journey to try to get this law passed, that you will get inspired. So I'll just share with you a couple of photos. I'm trying to figure out how to do this well. Okay, now I have to go back to Zoom. Okay, so the day started quite early for a range of people coming from Los Angeles. They boarded a bus in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning from West Los Angeles, and then picked up a whole group of folks in the Santa Clarita or some area way up there at 3 a.m. and drove all night to get to the rally. And hold on, I now want to share with you another photo from our rally. So we then had a rally over the course of the day, and we visited with our legislators. Let me show you an example of that real quick. Here is an example of we met with legislators to talk about our bill, and we wanted you all to know that our legislators really care about us, and they are there to help us. This person here is Senator Caroline Menjivar, represents the San Fernando Valley, and this is a group of her constituents that came up on that bus all night. Some of them drove in their own cars, and she pledged to help our community, and we know that will happen. She's a very powerful, important senator to us, because she is she chairs the committee that funds DDS and the regional centers. So having this meeting directly with her was critically important. And then finally, I'll just share a photo or two. Hold on, I need to get back there, of our incredible rally. I should have had this all prepared, but I thought of this like at the very last minute that I should share photos. So it ended up that I wasn't prepared, and I apologize. So we had at our rally dozens of speakers from around the state, including self-advocates and family members. Here is a photo of our author, who is Assemblymember Dawn Addis, speaking to our crowd. We had about a couple of hundred people there, all self-advocates and family members. They came from San Diego, Los Angeles, Central California, Stockton, Sacramento area, Bay Area, and all the way up. We had a huge crowd come from the Redwood Coast area, including right at the Oregon border. And people brought their children. We had siblings speak, we had parents speak, and we had a lot of self-advocates speak. So I wanted to share that with you to show you that we always have power. We just have to use our power. There was a hearing just today in the legislature on 2 reports that had just came out. The first report was about the Little Hoover Commission report, which many of you know. If you're on our mailing list, you would have seen that the report came out, and they called for widespread reforms to the developmental disability system. And they have pledged their support for our legislation for AB 1147. And then the second panel that we watched was a report by Georgetown University, which had done a study of the disparity grants the DDS gives, and they have a set of recommendations as well. If you're interested, I can find you a link for that hearing, and you can go ahead and watch it on your own. It was a hearing about many other issues as well, so you want to be watching issues 2 and 3. So looking forward to continuing to keep everyone up to date. We are now at the really hard stage of getting this bill passed. I fear that we are going to have a lot of problems over the next couple weeks. And so that's why we continue to need your support. We continue to need your engagement in calling your legislators and calling the governor and calling DDS to urge them to support the elements of AB 1147. So we'll keep you posted through this forum, as well as other forums that we have. So thank you so much, Kristianna, for letting me speak about it. And I'll let you go ahead with SDP Connect.
Awesome. Also, LA Times also came out and supported it.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. On the day of our rally, on the day of the hearing, the reason we had the rally, I forgot to mention, was there was a hearing before the Assembly Human Services Committee, of which our bill passed unanimously, at which it did. And that morning before the hearing, the Los Angeles Times, the largest and most influential newspaper in the state of California, endorsed our bill and pledged support for it. So that is very huge. It's rare, actually, that the Los Angeles Times endorses bills. And we believe it is fine time right now for reforms in the developmental disability system, and that DDS holds regional centers and service providers more accountable, and that people are able to more smoothly enter the self-determination program. So thank you so much. And I will be quiet now, maybe.
So the next couple things we wanted to talk about really quickly are, we had a couple directives come out, so we do want to talk about those. I'm going to share my screen here. The first directive that came out March 2nd. I know a couple people had talked about seeing it already. It is posted on the DDS website, and it really is about just some billing process updates. So nothing, it's kind of technical things in the background, hopefully help the FMSs get paid, financial management services, trying not to use acronyms, get paid a little bit quicker. So not too much impact for the participants. The next directive that came out April 19th. It has not been posted to the DDS website yet. It is about coordinated family support services. I know we get a lot of questions and people have been asking about this. So this directive has said that the coordinated family support services is a pilot program, and SDP participants are not eligible for it. We disagree with this. We don't see it as a pilot, and that in their trainings, they have said it's open to anybody 18 and older who is a regional center client. So if anybody out there is going to challenge this, we would love to hear from you and let us know what goes on with that. If you want this one, since it's not up on DDS, we will put the link in the chat so you can have a copy of it. The next announcement we have is West Side Regional Center. It has a resource fair coming up in June 10th. So this is just to kind of save the date that it's coming up. And we will put a link for this flyer in the chat. And in preparation for that resource fair, we have vendor signups. So if you are a vendor in that area and would like to come, we would love to have you. And the other thing that we're doing at this resource fair, which is super exciting, is micro enterprise. So if there's any participants who are doing micro enterprises and would love to come and share their products, we would love for you to come. So, and here is your sign up for that. And I think with that, we are ready to get into our presentation. Our presentation today is going to be on FMS models. Give me 1 second and I will share my presentation here.
Can I just make one quick announcement that I forgot to say?
Absolutely.
The Spanish SDP manuals are printed. Woo! And our staff are starting to send them out this week. So we are, for those of you in this who have requested or purchased a Spanish manual, the Think Outside the Box manual, it should be in your mailbox in the next couple of weeks. If you would like to purchase the Spanish manual, I'm going to actually ask Kira or Ed to explain how, if there's a way for folks to already do that, but I'm not sure if you haven't yet purchased it yet. So do we know, Kira or Ed, how one purchases the Spanish manual?
I'm gonna have to toss that over to Kira. I'm not familiar with the updates on that.
Hi, Judy. Hi, everyone. So I believe we don't quite have that set up yet, but I will take a look and we will have an update for you either at our next SDP Connect or in our newsletter.
Thanks, Kira.
Wonderful. So today we're going to talk about the financial management service models, and in particular, the difference between co-employer and sole employer, because we get tons of questions about this. There are 3 models that you can choose from when you are selecting your financial management service. There is bill payer, co-employer, and sole employer. We're going to go into each one of those. For bill payer, you are not hiring employees. And so but the thing is that you still don't need to use the vendored service from your local regional center. You can now use any service. You just can't hire an employee. So the financial management service is still going to pay for goods and services. This is just the one that you use if you are not hiring anybody yourself. Co-employer. This is the one where the financial management service is going to hire the employees on your behalf. And they are called the employer of record, but you are working together. So the financial management service employee rules will apply to that employee because they are the one who hires, and we're going to go into a lot more detail about that later on. But as the participant, you are still going to choose who's going to be hired and fired, and you are going to be selecting who to hire. In the sole employer, the participant is the employer of record or somebody the participant chooses. It could be a parent or somebody else that they trust. In this model, you can choose if you want to do a background check if the employee is not providing personal care services. So in the co-employer, everybody has to get background checks. In sole employer, you have a little bit more flexibility. In the case with my son, when we hire, if it's somebody that I know very well, a family member, close friend, we don't worry about background checks. If it's somebody that I did an advertisement for and I'm not sure, I will usually choose to do a background check, and we are in sole employer. The other thing is that in sole employer, You can use the same employee for multiple clients. And this usually is an issue if you have siblings, or if you know somebody else who you really like their employee, but they happen to be with the same financial management service. This becomes a problem if they're in co-employer. So we're going to go into a lot more detail about the two right now. So let's compare each of the pieces of co-employer to sole employer. So in both options, you were the one who was going to be doing the hiring and firing. You're going to do your advertising. You were going to be the one who selects who is going to be hired. For the employer of record, we kind of already talked about that. In co-employer, it's the financial management service. And this becomes kind of integral when we start talking about other parts of it, like the insurance. And in sole employer, the participant or a selected person is the employer of record. Oh, I want to go back to that. For the sole employer, for the participant to be the employer of record, it can be a minor, it can be anyone. And usually what I recommend as an independent facilitator is that the employer of record be the participant if they don't have any assets. If a parent has assets and they are the employer of record, and there is a problem or a lawsuit and it goes beyond what that insurance could cover, they could potentially go after your assets. So we usually recommend, most of it, independent facilitators will recommend in sole employer that the participant will be the employer of record. For background checks, in co-employer, the financial management service decides, and every financial management service that I am aware of requires all employees to have background checks. In sole employer, the participant could decide, we already talked about that a little bit, if they are not providing personal care, then you can decide if you want to have a background check or not, it's nice. It gives you more flexibility. In both cases, the employees need to pay for their own background checks. Now comes the interesting piece that I think a lot of people have questions about. It gets down to the benefits. How do the benefits work in co-employer versus sole employer? So in co-employer, the benefits are going to be the same for everybody at the financial management service. So remember, they're the employer. So that means if they have a certain health insurance or specific days off or any of those things, those are going to apply to your employee as well because they are the employer of record. Now, in sole employer, you have some more flexibility in what benefits you're going to offer. We're going to go into a lot more detail about health insurance and the other insurances, but it just know that in sole employer, you have a choice. So we talk about employer burden. It's an odd terminology, and so I like to explain what that is. For participants, it's a percentage. So when you call and you ask your financial management service, what is the employer burden, they're going to give you a percentage. And it's different at every financial management service. That's why you want to ask. And it's different between co-employer and sole employer. So it's important to ask, what is the employer burden? And what this is the FICA, which is, I had to actually look this up because I didn't know what the acronym stood for, Federal Insurance Contributions Act. And that is the combination of Social Security and Medicare taxes. It covers workers' comp and liability insurance, and we're going to go into detail what those are. And then I put two asterisks next to these two things. It's not part of the employer burden, but it's usually can be part of the costs that you're going to have to pay. So it won't be part of that percentage, but you may have to pay for health insurance or sick days, depending on the financial management service, how they organize it. So we're going to talk about that. So let's talk about workers' comp versus liability insurance. I knew nothing about this before I started self-determination program with my son. Probably didn't want to know anything about it, but we know now. So workers' comp and liability insurance, you need both of them when you hire employees. both cover workplace injuries. The workers' comp will protect the employee. And so if they get injured or sick or something happens on the job, they're not alleging that you're responsible or there's any liability on the employer's part. It would cover medical bills and lost wages. So that covers protects the employee. Liability insurance protects the employer. So let's say somebody gets hurt, your employee gets hurt at your home, and they say, well, I tripped over a hose that they left out. They should have put it away. It's their fault. So they're saying that you have a liability or responsibility. Your liability insurance would kick in and cover these things. It can also be property damage or advertising injury. Property damage, like say when they tripped, they dropped their cell phone. Now they want their cell phone replaced. That would be under liability insurance. Now, a lot of people say, well, my homeowner's insurance could cover this, and that's true. But like I said prior, when we talked about who would be the employer of record, a lot of times we don't recommend that you would use your homeowner's insurance or anything where if it went beyond the workers' comp and liability, that they could come after you. So typically, every FMS that I know that offers solo employer will offer workers' comp and liability through their agency. If you can find a better deal in sole employer, you can absolutely you can get your own policies. For co-employer, you have to use the FMS's policy because remember, they are the employer of record. Health insurance. This is another big one we get tons of questions about. So in co-employer, remember, the financial management service is the employer. So whatever rules they have around their health insurance are going to apply to your employees. Each of the FMS's financial management services have different rules around this of when the health insurance kicks in. So you need to ask them, so at what point? The important thing to know for co-employer is once the health insurance kicks in, so let's say it was 30 days, their health insurance is kicking in, they have the option for health insurance. The participant can choose whatever policy they want from the employer, and you have to pay the employer part of that from your spending plan. You don't get a choice. You can't say, no, I don't like that policy, or I want something different. You have to pay for that, and you have to have that in your spending plan. And so kind of, again, if you're going to be hiring employees, it's a good independent facilitator should have kind of talked these things through with you so you can kind of plan ahead. So if you're in co-employer, if they have health insurance and the employee chooses it, you are going to have to pay for it. In sole employer, in California, you are only required to provide health insurance if you have over 50 employees. So most self-determination participants, I can't imagine anybody being legally required to offer health insurance. With that said, we love our employees, and maybe you have ones that you want to take care of, and I think that's wonderful. I highly encourage it. You can offer to cover your employees' health insurance, and the best way to do that is through reimbursement in the sole employee. The nice part about this in sole employer, you have a say in it. So if somebody comes back with this super expensive policy, you can say, I think that's too much. We need to look for another policy. So unlike co-employer, where you just have to go with what the FMS had, sole employer, again, you have a little bit more freedom. Here is a chart of all of those things I just talked about. We can put a link in the chat so you can get this chart. I love handouts. That way you have a record so you know what we talked about today. And that's it. So I assume we're going to have lots and lots of questions because this is a topic that has lots of questions. We have two ways you can ask questions. You can raise your hand, or you can put them in the chat, and Ed will organize the chat questions and read them out to us, and we alternate between the two. So Ed, how are you doing with the chat questions, and would you like to start?
We have some amazing, questions in the chat. But first, before we get started, I'd like to issue a correction to folks. As a matter of fact, you can get the Spanish version of the Think Outside the Box manual on our website right now, and I'm going to post the information on how you can get it in the chat. Kira also posted it a little bit earlier, so thank you so much to them. Just wanted to let folks know that. And now, Kristianna, thank you so much. I'm going to turn to our questions. So the first question I have is from an anonymous participant who asks, I know that the self-determination program requires that services must be approved for federal reimbursement. If a service that the participant needs is not federally reimbursable, can state dollars that the regional center received cover a service that's not federally approved?
I'm going to say yes, with a caveat. So it's hard when you're talking very vague. So I don't know a specific service that you are talking about. But like one case that I can think of is if you have housing and you do not have Social Security and the regional center is paying for it, it's something that could be held outside of self-determination program. If you were asking about, is there something where you could have you did all of the other things, you went through the generic resources and things were denied, but it is something that the regional center is agreeing to pay for, then yes, it could be put in your spending plan, in your budget, and then in your spending plan. Again, that would be on a very case-by-case thing. So I'm saying a loose yes, because it would really depend on whether the regional center is willing to pay for something that is not federally reimbursable.
Thank you so much, Kristianna. Our next question is from Ethan. This is in reference to when we were discussing folks who are not involved in personal care. Ethan asks, could you please define what is personal care?
Ooh, good question. Anything where they are doing anything with your body, taking you to the restroom, helping you dress, cleaning, anything like that, feeding. So think about things like nursing pieces. Those would fall under personal care.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kristianna. The next question is, in co-employer, do you have to provide or offer health insurance to employees who work less than 15 hours?
Great question. So remember, it depends on the financial management service. They determine when somebody will qualify for their health insurance plan. So typically, if somebody works part-time, they wouldn't qualify. But again, you need to check with your financial management service because everybody has different policies of when somebody qualifies.
Got it. Thank you, Kristianna. Next question. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background. She's very annoyed that I'm not petting her right now. In co-employer, and this is from Miriam, in co-employer, oh, excuse me, I already asked that. Allison asks, what does federally reimbursable mean? Is there a list of things that are and aren't federally reimbursable?
That is a great question. And I hate that term, don't you? Federally reimbursable. It's such a difficult thing to understand what they mean by that. And the very simple answer is, if you go to the DDS Self-Determination Program website and you look at the definitions for self-determination program, so you'll see the service codes and then the service code definitions. Anything in those definitions are what are federally reimbursable. Now, remember, in those definitions, they might also have something where you have to go somewhere else first. Like you might have to use a generic resource first or an insurance first, but that would make them federally reimbursable. Judy, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, so this is a little one that regional centers and create lots of problems for FMSs on. And then the FMSs create problems for participants and their families. So it is really important that you look at the directives. It's not just that 28 pages in our handbook, by the way. You can find this online, but you can also find it in our handbook, all printed out in both Spanish. We translate it into Spanish and in English. So it's not just those pages, because there are other requirements that, about generic resources, and it has to be included in the community that you also have to consider. But if you could, so it's not just those lists that you should look at. You should also look at the directives specifically on what can and cannot be put in your spending plan. So, for example, DDS is very clear that buying a ticket for pure entertainment purposes could be loosely called community integration. It could be called that, and there is certainly community integration in the federal waiver, in the federal list of services. But they have specifically narrowed that to say something for purely entertainment purposes, like a Disneyland ticket or a ticket to a concert or the Ice Capades or other kinds of things. So that is where it's important to look at two documents. So I don't know. Oh, there he is. Kristianna put it in the chat. So it's really important that you look at those that specific directive.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Kristianna. So our next question is from Nicole. And Nicole says, we already have a budget for the year. This is our first year in the self-determination program. When it's time for the second year, can we add more money into the spending plan to cover health insurance for an employee? And she adds that she says she's the sole proprietor. I think she means the sole employer model. Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. No, you cannot increase your budget, meaning what the regional center is going to pay in order to pay for what's in your spending plan. The only way you can increase your budget is if you have an unmet need or a change in circumstance. So that's one of those cases where you're going to have to adjust your spending plan to get it covered. That's kind of why we want to make sure people knew that it could come up. So when they're thinking about having employees, it is on your mind that this could potentially be there.
Got it. Thank you so much, Kristianna. Our next question is from Alfredo. Is it possible to get the PowerPoints in Spanish? And I can sort of jump in here on this one. We don't have a copy of this week's PowerPoint in Spanish, but that's certainly something we can consider. Judy, Kristianna, do you want to jump in on that?
Absolutely. And I apologize for not having them in Spanish. And so that is something we will start working on right away.
Thank you, Kristianna. Our next question is from Elena, who asks, hello, can you explain how to initiate services and payments once you have transitioned into the SDP in, let's say, the first month?
Oh, wow. This is a great question. So this is a question I get a lot because we do have independent facilitators that don't do ongoing services. So they get you transitioned and then they go away and participants are like, I don't know what to do. Your first point of contact is your financial management service, right? And they're going to be the ones who help you. But your independent facilitators really should be helping you. So each financial management service has a different way for you to access those funds. Some of them you email, some of them you have forms, some of them have online. So you need to talk to your financial management service and say, I need to know how to start paying for each of the services. And remember, there's different ways to pay for different things. So if you have somebody who's maybe a vendor, then they would need to be giving you invoices. And if you have a good or service, they might be paying for it through a credit card. If it's some financial management services will pay that way. If you have an employee, they will probably have some way for them to enter their hours, and it could be a handwritten timesheet, it could be an online app. So I don't have an easy answer for you. It is financial management service dependent.
Thank you so much, Kristianna. We have another anonymous question. Is there a directive that excludes legal fees for a special needs trust from being included in a spending plan? I was approved to use SDP for a life planning workshop on special needs trust, but I could not go to the next step for the special needs trust because the RC said the regional center said it was not federally reimbursable, but they could not show me a directive or give me any reasoning behind the decision.
Well, I am 100% with you on this one. Most regional centers used to cover them. They have recently been coming out and saying that they do not cover it. There is no directive that says they cannot cover it. So I think that it absolutely could be challenged. And I think that there is probably an argument for having it under independent facilitation. If you read the description of what independent facilitation, that service code is, I think that there is a reasonable argument there. But Judy.
This question has come up before on when you were doing a session on spending plans. So there is nothing in the federal waiver or in the directives from DDS that prohibit people from using funding for their special needs trusts or those kind of life planning things. So if for some reason the regional center says it's not allowed, you have to ask them to point to where it is in a directive or in statute or in the federal waiver that says it's not available. However, I should tell you that everything in the spending plan should relate to the person-centered plan. Can you tell I'm on the East Coast and I'm tired? To the person's person-centered plan. So if there is nothing in the person-centered planning process which is directed by the person, where the person is expressing an interest in having a person-centered plan, it's hard. Not person-centered, a special needs trust, it's hard. Because that special needs trust is actually the responsibility of the parents. And so if you're going to try to make that case, it has to be that through the person-centered plan, you've discovered the individual says, I'm worried about when my parents die, and I'm worried about whether I'm going to have money, and I'm worried about what's going to happen to me. How can we do planning for this? Or something along those lines. So, that's just, you have to be able to point to something. And I think that's going to be harder to do, as opposed to somebody saying, I really want to learn how to paint, or I want to make more friends, or I want a job. I mean, those are more commonly what comes up in a in a person-centered plan.
The anonymous person has offered some clarification and said, I asked all the questions you mentioned. The regional center told me to talk to the ombudsperson. Her person-centered plan was to keep her in the community.
Oh, okay. To keep her in the community is not the same thing as creating a special needs trust. A special needs trust, you can take that money and segregate a person. So, I mean, you can do anything with a special needs trust. You can put somebody to live in an institution if you want to. I can promise you a lot of people live in institutions have special needs trusts. So that's not a direct link right there. So it has to be somebody is concerned about, as their parents age, they need to protect their public benefits. There is also a presumption, honestly, that people who have who could afford a special needs trust can also afford to hire a lawyer. And so you have to get past that let's say this individual inherited money from a relative, or maybe has money from a automobile accident settlement. I mean, those are the times when special needs trusts need to be developed, when the actual family doesn't have the resources to pay for the lawyer themselves to create it. So you're going to have to make some clear arguments.
And to that point, and this is the last, Anonymous, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to move on to another question. The last clarification is the trust pays off this person's mortgage so that the person served can stay in the home. So I'm not sure if that affects anything that you've just said.
So in my son's person-centered plan, the things that he said he was concerned about is wanting to stay in the home if we were gone, and being worried about money and being taken care of. So it was in his things that he was requesting and he was worried about. But again, we had it done prior to kind of this new wave, this new change. So
thank you, Kristianna and Judy. Moving on to another question.
I want to apologize, but I'm taking off. It is 8:10 here. So great.
Enjoy your dinner.
Thank you, everybody. Bye all.
Bye.
So our next question is from Vilmar. Vilmar asks, how will FMSs and independent facilitators split the 099 funding come July 1st? Or are they doing it now for those who are already vendored under 099? Is it 50-50? Is it an even split? Or are FMSs billing for most of the onboarding?
So this is an interesting question. Just so you know, I'm not aware of anybody having billed under 099 yet. I'm also not aware of any financial management services having been vendored yet for 099. And at the regional center where I am at, I am the only vendor so far. So these are questions we don't have the answers to yet, but I can tell you how it was explained to me. What they expect to happen for 099 is that because when you start the transition process, the person may not have chosen a financial management service at that point. And so this is going to be like any other vendored service where the participant says, I'm going to transition into self-determination program and I need to have support. I'm going to have a vendor at 099 work with me. And then you will agree on the amount of hours like you would with anything else. It really is up to, so they said up to 40. They said there is no hard line at 40. And so it is really for the independent facilitator to say, I think it's going to take me 30 hours. I think it's going to take me whatever amount of hours they think it's going to be. And then that will be done as an addendum to their IPP. And that's how it will play out. That's what we're expecting. There is no hard and fast line or rule at this point. Not saying it won't change, but that's where we're at today.
Thank you so much, Kristianna. Our next question is from Anonymous. How can I request items on the spending plan that my adult son needs for cooking and baking, like baking sheets, measuring cups, a blender, so on? They're not supplies for cooking classes, but the items that he will use at home. The regional center is denying them. His goals and his spending plan are independent and supported living skills and AST. And Kristianna, if you know the acronym for AST, if you could let us know what that is, I would appreciate it.
I'm not certain. Assistive something, I'm not sure. So this can be a hard sell. And if you look at that directive that we put in the chat, those goods and services, this is where there's a lot of gray area here, because what you say is something that they need for independent living, the regional center can say that's purely recreational, right? And so I think there's just going to be a lot of back and forth and arguments about these types of things. And so in the case of cooking things, that I think it's going to be that will be a hard argument back and forth for those reasons. You can both point to this exact same directive and interpret it differently. So I don't have an easy answer for you for that one, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Allison had her hand up. Can we,
Yes, of course.
Allison, would you like to go?
Thank you. Okay, so I have a bill, I'm with the bill payer model because the previous entity payroll process just caused me so much pain. So I thought I could just, hire people through agencies with the 1099, but the flexibility is not there. So I was going to propose something to my FMS, and I wanted to hire off of care.com. And they have a service called HomePay, and they said they could process the payroll for anyone that was hired off of care.com. And then all I would do is just approve the time card, and then my FMS would pay them and they would pay the employee. Is that something that a model that would be prohibited by the state that you're aware of?
It would depend who the employer of record is. So if care.com is the employer of record, then I would assume the FMS could pay them like any other vendor. If you are the employer of record, then that wouldn't be permitted, because then you would be hiring an employee and you would need to be either in co-employer or sole employer.
Well, I know you had mentioned at one time you use care.com. So, I mean, what does it mean to be an employer record? Because I wouldn't be paying their payroll. I wouldn't be paying taxes. I wouldn't be processing. I mean, what does it mean then to be an employer of record?
If you were hiring somebody, you would need to, if they are working for you, you would need to pay taxes for them. So they would be W-2 or they would be 1099. So 1099 is they're a business and they do it, but the thing with 1099, there's what they call the ABC test. And California is very sticky about this. They don't like people to be tagged as 1099 if they are supposed to be W-2 employee. What I mean by employer of record is, are you hiring this person or is care.com hiring them?
Well, care.com is a service.
Right.
I mean, you pay care.com. You're paying them a monthly fee to access their service, and then whatever you don't pay the employee directly, you pay care.com.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be a really good question for a financial management service. And like I said, I think it would really get down to, are they almost working like a co-employer, right? Agency? It would, in that situation, is care.com acting as kind of that co-employer piece, and then you could just pay, and then the FMS could pay them. That I'm just actually not sure. It would really depend, like I said, who is actually hiring them.
Oh, okay. Because how is that different than me? Like right now I'm using a vendor agency, and they allow me, so they send out people, they say, well, do you want this person to work for you or that person to work for you? So it's kind of, how's that different from care.com, where I'm interviewing people and I'm saying, no, I don't want that person and I don't want that person.
So when you're that vendor is hiring them, and that vendor is paying their salary. They are the employer of record. In care.com, most cases, they're just like an employment agency. They're saying, here is somebody you could work with. So that's why it really just kind of gets down to whether the FMS is going to determine that care.com is the vendor, then it would be fine.
Okay, well, I'll ask HomePay, because HomePay contracts with care.com to do the payroll process. So maybe they'll understand that question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Allison. I accidentally muted you before you were done speaking, so I'm going to ask you to unmute again.
It was just a closing statement that I'm just trying to step back, because there's not that many FMSs that I can switch to someone with an employer model. I like who I'm with, and I don't want to get on a waiting list.
Yeah. but that's kind of the limitation of bill payer, right? Is not being able to hire your own employees.
Yeah, well, there were limitations with the other one too. It took months to get an invoice paid.
Exactly. Oh, well, believe me, we can talk.
Didn't have anything. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Allison. Christiana, would you like to move on to Nirmala, or would you like to have some text questions?
Nirmala, would you like to go? And then we'll go back to our chat questions.
Nirmala, oh, go ahead. Mhm.
Hi. I have posted these questions, but they were unanswered, but I have to go to my typed up thing here to see and find it. Give me just 1 second, okay?
And just a heads up, Nirmala, the reason that they went unanswered is because we answered a question of yours previously, and I like to
Yes,
make
yes,
sure
I totally understand that. I
Yes.
totally understand that. I
Just a heads up.
absolutely understand that. I wanted to know, when a FMS gets paid by the RC for providing the FMS services to participants, do these dollars come from the state funds or the federal funds or both?
I believe they are federally reimbursed to the regional center, but I'm not exactly sure. I would have to ask. That is a very good question.
Okay, that'd be great. And I have 2 more follow-up questions, very small ones. Does the FMS use state or federal dollars when paying the providers that the SDP participant hires?
So everything in self-determination program has to be federally reimbursable. So they are
Okay,
federal funds. Yeah.
okay, but there are exceptions as you explained. Now, the last one is,
There's always exceptions to the rule, aren't there?
right. Now, the other thing is, if an SDP participant is only using STB services and does not have a plan with the mix of traditional and SDP services, then do all the services rendered to the SDP participant come from federal funds?
I don't think I understood that. Say that again. I missed it.
It's almost the same thing. Like if they're not using a mixed model of traditional and SDP services, and the participant services are all paid from federal dollars.
So you shouldn't, in self-determination program, it would be all, you can't be in both. So you're not
Okay,
doing
all
traditional
federal.
or self-determination. There's only a couple things, back to our exceptions, there's only a couple things that are held outside of self-determination. Everything else, you basically transition into self-determination.
Okay. Do I have one more question?
You could do
Time?
one more and then we'll
Yeah.
go on.
Okay. Why is an FMS provider unable to pay the spouse of a married SDP participant for providing IF service? I know about the DDS directive, which prohibits payment, but can someone explain the specific rule or regulation that is behind this directive of DDS?
It's a federal rule. I honestly can't explain because I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's right, but it is a federal rule, so they had to abide by that.
Where can I find this federal rule?
That I'm not certain. I'm assuming it's a title. You know what? I would have to look that up. I have no idea.
Okay, thank you. So
Sure.
those 2 lookups, I'm waiting for the answers on those 2.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
All right, Christiana, do you want to go to hands or do you want to go to text questions?
Let's go to a couple text questions.
Sure thing. I have an anonymous question, or excuse me, I have a question from Melissa Jones. Does the regional center need to know the names of the employer does the regional center need to know the names of the employee on your spending plan?
Oh, this is a new one coming up, right? That I'm starting to hear. Some of the regional centers are pushing to ask, and even some of the FMSs, financial management services, are asking for more and more detail. And one of them is they want to know the employees' names. You are not required to put any names or specific things. That is in the FAQs on the DDS website. Now, what some of the regional centers are saying, well, we want more specifics for dollar amounts and hourly and getting into this. I think there's going to be a big argument about this. This is something kind of new coming up, but as far as we know, you are not required specifically to put any names. It says it very clearly in the FAQ.
Thank you, Kristianna. Next question from Irene. When purchasing workers' comp insurance and liability insurance through one's financial management service in the sole employer model, are the costs usually reasonable? Or do those costs often exceed what one would have paid using the co-employer model when it's all lumped into the employer burden percentage?
That is a great question. And typically, in fact, across the board, the employer burden is lower in sole employer. You pay less. As far as are these comparable rates to if you went out and bought your own, I don't know. I'm not a insurance person, so I couldn't answer that. But I will say you'll probably, from experience, what I've seen with my own clients is because they are big agencies, they get better rates and better coverage. So I think that they tend to get better things than if you went off to do it on your own.
Awesome. I just have like 2 more. If we can just knock them out, and then we'll be good for the text questions.
Sure.
At least for right now. An anonymous question asker would like to know what the hourly rate is for 099 services.
So they are set by the state, and it is dependent on the regional center. There is a chart. I will look it up for you and put it in the chat in a second. That lists by regional center what the 099 rate is, but it's right around $50.
Great, thank you. And then Maria asks, for the independent contractor, the employer is not liable if something happens to them at your house, correct? For an independent contractor.
Correct. So for an independent contractor, they have to have liability insurance and workers' comp because they are their own employers, right? So.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Elena to unmute because she's first in line.
Hi. So my question is about if I have 2 children in a regional center and I want them to go DP program, am I able to use the same FMS?
You cut out for a second, but I think what you asked was, can you use the same FMS for 2 children?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll say is, yes, you can. But I would make the recommendation that you look at sole employer, because if you do co-employer, you may not be able to share. So let's say you have somebody you want to work with both of your children, that can be a problem. And let me explain why. If you in co-employer, the financial management service is the employer of record. And so if they work with more than one client, then it can go into overtime because they're always working for that FMS. So it's not fair that your person who worked for somebody else is now coming to your work and now is going into overtime. So it creates a lot of overtime issues. When you are sole employer, they would be working for one of your children for part of the time and the other child for the other part of the time. So you don't run into that. So that's my only recommendation. So yes, you can have the same financial management service and do sole employer, or if you want to do co-employer, have 2 different financial management services.
Awesome. Sandra, you are now able to unmute.
Hi, thanks. And I'm loving these SDP Connects with these timely topics. So I wanted to, there was a previous question talking about having traditional services and being an SDP. And I think for families that are getting into this, it's possible to utilize a traditional service provider that's vendored with the regional center to provide traditional services in SDP. So it's not like, okay, this menu is no longer available to you. Okay.
That is an excellent point.
So the other thing about the, where's the law that says a spouse can't? I don't know where that is either. I'd have to look. But what it was explained to me is this is a nationwide thing. It's not just California.
Yeah.
And what was explained to me is the reason why they mandate that is to avoid the risk of abuse, financial abuse, any other kind of abuse. And the other thing is that if the person is the power of attorney for the service recipient, they also can't get paid to provide services.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one.
So, because I'm in Illinois with my family right now, and they receive similar to IHSS in Illinois, and that was spelled out pretty clearly for us, especially now that COVID restrictions are going to be fully lifted. All of the exceptions that were allowed during COVID are being removed. So they're going back to all of the by the book, by the rules. If it is a family member, they can't be married to the service recipient, and they also can't be the service recipient's POA.
Sandra, thank you so much. And I think you made a really excellent point that I should have been a lot more clear on for the that when you're in self-determination program, you can use traditional system vendors, but you would need to have that vendor be willing to be paid by your self-determination program financial management service. That's the only piece. So thank you. I love that you cleared that up. Mr. Tim, how are you? Oh.
Tim, you should be able to turn your video on as well. Sorry, I didn't make you co-host before. I've been a little busy.
Kristianna, from my understanding is, if the staff is providing direct care, they cannot be 1099. They have to be W-2 from the FMS. I never used care.com, and I don't understand how their business model works, but if they are working as an agency to provide direct care, they could be a SDP vendor. Or, if care.com is just a temporary staffing company, I'm not sure how that would work. If care.com was an independent contractor, yeah, you could 1099 them, but the worker that you are hiring is most likely providing direct care support, and it gets confusing from there. Also, during the pandemic, from other states outside of California, under self-direction, they allowed spouses to be hired at direct care providers. That rule is going away because of the pandemic.
Oh. Okay, you had so many great points there. Exactly. So I think there is a big question mark on the care.com piece. And we had invited the financial management services, but my fault, my bad. I very last minute invited them and they could not make it, but they promised me, they said, if there are any questions to let them know, and then they'll answer them and I will bring them back next time. So will absolutely ask about care.com and the spouses not being paid, and any other ones that I can think of that I've been jotting notes. So good to see you, Tim. I'm glad you made it.
Okay, next up, we have a question from Robert. Robert, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay, I'll do that. My video's been off too. I don't know if I'm supposed to have my video on or not.
You're not supposed to, so no worries. You are right on track.
Okay, the question is, I think you said, it said that it should have been the second year that California has started self-determination, not the third year. I don't know who said the third year, but it should have been the second year for California that the self-determination program started, and we're finishing up that because it started July of 2021, and then I think it was Judy Marks or whoever said it. I don't know who said it, but I just wanted to correct that. And then so now that California has gone over 2,000 clients. There were 4 clients who are from Progressive Employment Concepts and Community Employment Services from the Sacramento, California area. Actually, one from Davis area, and also one from the Citrus Heights area, the office locations. So those were the clients who were mentioned. And there were many others too. They were mentioned from the Alta Regional Center newsletter, because now they have a newsletter at altaregionalcenter.org, or altaregional.org, sorry. And that's in the Sacramento, California area. So
Well,
it just,
thank you, Robert.
you can check out their website and maybe you can see if you can try to get it there. And then also, if any other self-advocates out there for TASH, you can go to Taylor@tash.org, and you can see if you want to be interviewed and say, why is it important to get the COVID vaccine? So,
Well, thank you. That was some great information, Robert.
you can write an email to some self-advocates out there who want to be interviewed. I mean, it's up to you. So, and
Oh, sorry, Robert. I think I cut you off there at the very end, but thank you very much for bringing that to the forefront. And also, I just want to note that for self-advocates who started in the pilot program, it may be their 3rd year, or it may be year 4 or 5, depending on how early they started in the pilot program. I think that may have been the context that Judy mentioned that in. I have a question in the chat that is, hold on just one second, that is in Spanish from Cecilia. So I'm going to repost it in the chat, and I'm going to ask folks to please, pretty please, do not use the chat until our interpreters are done interpreting the question, so that it makes their job easier. It's really hard, I can tell you from experience, to read a question in a moving chat, never mind translating it. So I've just posted Cecilia's question, and if one of our interpreters could please translate that for us, that would be great. Oh, you know what? I'll pop it. Thank you, Annabella. I'll pop it in the Google Doc literally right this second, because I have it copied. I apologize. Totally understandable. It is the most recent question, and I've highlighted it. And then Kira has posted, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
We don't have a list. And again, part of the foundation of self-determination program is authority and responsibility and the freedom. And so it really is, because, you know, California is so large, part of it depends on where you live, you know, the cost of living of where you live. So I can't say, oh, this is what what the right rate for your area is necessarily. What I can say is, if you look at the traditional system rates, they're probably lower than what most people would want to make. And that's part of the reason that we're in self-determination, is so we can pay them more than that. So that's the best that I think. I don't want to give you a specific amount, because again, it really depends on where you live.
Thank you, Kristianna. I have a question from June, who has not asked a question yet. Can you give me some examples of co-employer? For example, can the agency that I used for traditional services be the co-employer?
Okay, so there's a little confusion of what co-employer means then. If you want to use just traditional system, then you would use bill payer, and the financial management service would then pay those agencies. Again, you have to talk to those agencies and make sure that they're willing to do a contract or to work with your financial management service. When you say co-employer, you are co-employer with the financial management service, not the agencies. So I hopefully that clears up. There's a little confusion there. So you are co-employer with the financial management service.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristianna. I have very rarely does this happen to me, but I've run out of questions for the from the chat. Oh, wait, one from Anna Quint, who hasn't asked a question yet, so I want to get to her. I haven't joined the STP yet. Is the SDP and CFS question mark, I'm not sure what CFS stands for, preferable since you can't be in both?
Okay, so Coordinated Family Services is a vendored service, so it's not really something to be in. You would get Coordinated Family Services, and they're saying now only in traditional system. And what it is Coordinated Family Services came about during COVID. There were a lot of participants who had to move home because they lost caregivers or needed help with rent or whatever. And so they would move home and they would lose their supported living services because you can't have supported living services and live at home. And some of them had elderly parents who couldn't care for them. So DDS realized, hey, we have to have something where services can be coordinated for adults who are living at home with their parents, which is not supported living services. And that's where CFS came from. So CFS is really not meant to be a replacement for self-determination program. It's just another traditional system vendored service.
Thank you, Kristianna. While we are waiting for some other questions to come through, I'm going to start unmuting folks who are in the speaking line, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. First one is from Sandra. Go ahead, Sandra.
Hi. So I just wanted to talk about care.com a little bit. Care.com is, hold on one second, I'm moving. Care.com is like Indeed, just for caregivers. They're not an employment agency. There's, if you look at it kind of like Indeed, it's going to be, you have to be careful. If you're using them to like pay your employees like a payroll service, you have to make sure that they're going to follow all the rules that we need to follow in self-determination. And so it's just something to be aware of. I'm not sure I would want the hassle of trying to get my FMS to pay care.com.
It seems like you're going through somebody to go through somebody, right? It's
right.
Yeah.
So so that was really the only thing. I'm just like, after what I've been through with care.com and really having no joy with hiring caregivers through there was a lot of people looking for live-in situations with caregiving, and just I was like, I'm not sure why I signed up for this. It was pretty crazy. So that was the one thing that I was like, let's help people, like, just kind of maybe take this off their table of things to consider. If you are going through sole employer or even co-employer where you're finding your own person, but the FMS is going to be the employer of record, it might be a good place to start of one of the places you look. but then go through all of the things that the FMS wants for them to do, the background check and all of the things.
Right.
So it's not a bad place. It might become more work than you're willing to do to weed through the yuck to find the caregiver that's appropriate for your family. So that was just the only thing that and then the other thing about questions about rates. So if you go to the DDS website and you put in a search for rate study, they have by regional center what the rate study was and what the rates are for what they pay. If they're paying a traditional service provider. So kind of take that into consideration. Like, for example, we're looking at ILS and SLS for my son. And so we see the hourly rate that they have on there for a 1-to-1. And we realize that for our geographic area, we could actually pay somebody and the employer burden from that rate. And it's a decent living wage. So it's something to consider.
When you look at those rates, they do break them down on that study by what they're paying the person versus what they're paying the agency and all of those things. And so you see how little the individuals who are caring for our people are making versus how much the agencies are getting, right? Tim's agreeing with me on that. So we can absolutely pay them much better than they were getting from the agencies through regional center. Nina, you had unmuted. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I just was going to follow up on what you were saying on coordinated family support services. You know, in addition to your description of the background, sort of how it came to be, and yes, the funding for it came from the HCBS monies, that the additional monies that came through during COVID for sure. But it has been long sought after, especially by underserved family, you know, community members, Latino groups, because the idea was the principle behind it is having something similar to SLS in the family home. And ever since it's, you know, and it's called a pilot project because it's really part of that, from that funding, which does have a finite, you know, existence. However, it technically is available in theory at all regional centers. There's not a known cap for it. There are pretty much no vendors yet, as far as we can tell. But you know, as you had pointed out, Kristianna, it's just very unfortunate that there was this weird carve out in the directive that said, sorry, you know, not available for SDP. That said, that means it's not available to build your budget on, to say, this is something, you know, we're eligible for, it fulfills a need, it's consistent, you know, it's part of my PCP and IPP, it's you know, and so you build a budget on that and then do what you need to do to meet that need in your own way in the spending plan, right? You know, so that for now, that's not there. There's a lot of pushback on this, and hopefully we'll get better clarification as this goes on. But, you know, no, this was a long time, and it was really considered a disparity and equity measure. So it's an important concept that we should all just keep our eyes on.
Yeah. I was actually really excited about the idea of it, and was really bummed when they came out and said it's not available to people in self-determination program.
Well, it's not available to build a budget. I mean,
right.
By other means,
right.
You want to do something like that with your spending plan. You can. You just don't have the extra bump from this service being an eligible one to you, right? I mean, that's my take.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but we're watching it, and hopefully this will get clarified in the other direction for us.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that history, because I see how important it is, because I know that, you know, in like my community, I'm half Mexican. It's people live at home for a very long time, and you take care of, and so we have most of my family has multi-generations living, and so the people in the regional center were really getting a lot less services because of that.
Exactly.
So.
Thank you so much, Nina. I have an anonymous question from someone who's not yet asked one, so I'm just gonna pop it in here real quick. Can we list the CFS in the spending plan for self-determination, if we're able to receive and have it authorized by the regional center prior to getting into the self-determination program?
I'm not exactly sure I understand the question. Are they saying that somebody already gave it to them prior to this directive coming out?
My understanding from this is that this person is asking if they get CFS authorized before they start their self-determination program.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If it's in their last 12 months spending. That is a darn good question. And I would love for somebody to bring that one forward, because honestly, I'm not certain anybody at this point is going to have it in their last 12 months, because I don't know that there are any vendors. I don't know that it's actually started, but we are absolutely going to get to a point where people will have had it in their last 12 months. And that should hopefully blow this directive back to where it came from.
Well put. Thank you, Kristianna. I have just one more text question. Have people had experience with their FMS giving the option to get their own liability insurance and workers' comp under the sole employer model? I know that Mainsol doesn't reduce their rate in that case.
Yeah, I have had, I'm trying to think, I've had a couple clients who have gotten their own. And they did, but it was not with Mainsol. It was with another FMS. It really will depend on the FMS if you're going to go and get your own. Again, not all of the FMSs offer sole employer. And that is something I realized I missed in my slides, is that go and double check your which financial management services work with your regional center, because they don't all work with every regional center, and every financial management service doesn't offer every model. So those are two things to be sure to check. I need to add that to the slide.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Nirmala. I'm going to unmute you. Go right ahead. Are you able to unmute, Nirmala?
Yeah, my daughter's going to ask the
Oh,
question.
just 1 second, Nirmala, you're echoing. If you're on another device, could you please mute that other device?
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Go right ahead.
Hi, I had a question about CFS and the discussion about how it's no longer available to the participants in self-determination, but one of the presenters mentioned that you could still get the service in your own way. Could you clarify how somebody still goes about incorporating the service?
So what CFS is offering is like coordinating services. So what I see actually is a lot of independent facilitators who are providing ongoing services are kind of working in that capacity, but you could hire somebody to manage staff and help hire and fire. So all of the things that are listed under what CFS does, you could hire people to do on your own, kind of creatively in your spending plan.
Okay, but it cannot be billed as CFS.
No, because there is no, if you look at the service code. So remember, there's traditional system service codes, and those are completely different than the self-determination program service codes. So CFS is a traditional system. So it doesn't cross over into the self-determination world. But the services that they're giving, you could in other ways. So that's what Nina meant by you could create those services in your spending plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Great question. Just a heads up, folks, that we are now, in just 30 seconds anyway, we'll be in the last 5 minutes of SDP Connect. And just a heads up for that. So we want to get through as many of your questions as possible. I'm gonna unmute you, Robert. Go right ahead.
All right. My question is, What is SB 1147 in California? What does that bill mean?
Oh,
for the state of California?
I am going to let Nina answer this one because she is the expert on this.
Well, you know, the expert was on here before, and that's Judy, but so it's so Robert, it is AB 1147, which is so when there's legislation, there's always sort of two letters in front of it, and that just shows where the legislation is first proposed, and ours is an assembly bill. So AB 1147, and that is it's a bill that has many parts, that is designed, its purpose is to basically reform the regional center system in a way that promotes greater equity and accountability and transparency. So there's all kinds of provisions that that go towards sort of how you interact with the regional center, how they can provide greater help in helping you with generic resources, and a whole variety of things like that that have been identified again as equity disparity issues for many years. And then we also look at regional center governance, how the boards run, changing some of those rules to make them more responsive to the community and avoid things like fears of retaliation if a family member or self-advocate board member, you know, feels like they're speaking out. So it's all designed to make the regional center a place you can trust more. And so there's many other provisions involving, you know, involving data, and there's a huge program, a good one. I mean, it's good, and it's going to take many years to overhaul the data system. That will be helpful to all of us in the long run, but having the community involved in establishing it, like being part of the project from the ground up. So there are many different provisions of it. And if you go on the DVU website, we've got really shorter, we have any size you want fact sheet. We have longer versions, we have shorter versions of our fact sheets explaining a bit of it. And as we often say, you know, often we've been told, oh, it's such a big bill, and we say it addresses big problems, bold solutions or big problems. I believe Ed came up with that. But anyway, she's the phrase maker. And but anyway, I'm glad you asked, and check it out on the website and come to our events. So, okay.
Please come to our events, and thank you so much, Nina, for giving us that explanation. I was kicked out of the Zoom very briefly because my computer had a fit, and I just realized that I missed a question from Flora, and I'd like to end with that, if that's okay with you folks.
Absolutely.
Great. Flora's question is, do you have any suggestions on what we can do regarding FMSs not being able to pay for services with not being able to pay for services with certain agencies that require, say, a registration account and payments online, like the YMCA or a gym?
This is an issue for everybody. We feel your pain. We know that what I can say is every FMS has a different policy of how they pay. And when I say this, I'm saying it tongue in cheek because I know that that's not possible, but that's part of when you're choosing your FMS. If you're starting this process, ask how they pay for things when you're picking them, because that will make your process easier depending what type of services you're going to have. What I can say is with the current FMSs, DDS is very aware of the struggles that we are having. And it's a perfect place to end tonight, which is, I want you to know that we realize there are struggles and we are going through growing pains, but I can tell you that there is not a single person that I know that is in self-determination program who would give it up. So I want everybody to keep the faith, and we are going to get through this together, and we are going to work through all of these hurdles, and we're going to make self-determination program better and stronger for everyone. And with that, we have finished our Connect, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you everyone so much for coming.